Hey guys, before we get into this episode, I have a huge favor to ask you. If you haven't done so already, please head over to iTunes or wherever you listen to the podcast and leave a rating and review. These ratings and reviews mean so much in terms of growing the podcast. So if you've enjoyed the podcast so far, you can make a real positive impact on the growth of the show in just a matter of a few seconds. So head over to your podcast listening app of choice, which if you're listening to it now, you should already be on, and head over and leave a review. If you're new to the 9-5 podcast, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. I hope this can be a great resource for you to learn more about entrepreneurship and ultimately help you grow your own business. Let's get right into the episode. So one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs and business owners make when trying to build their online presence is failing to develop a real solid strategy and plan before diving into the online space. That is where people like today's guest come into play. This week, I'm chatting with Lenny Richardson, who runs a digital marketing agency where he helps business owners and entrepreneurs develop and implement their digital marketing strategies. This includes managing social media, email marketing, and advertising, among a slew of other things him and his agency does. So in this episode, we talk about common mistakes people make early on when developing or in their lack of developing a digital marketing strategy and ways you can improve upon your own strategy. So without further ado, let's dive right into this episode with Lenny. This is the 9-5 Podcast, and I'm your host, Nick Nalbach, where we get into the minds of entrepreneurs and people just like you so you can start, build, and grow your own online business. Okay, welcome to the 9-5 Podcast, and I am sitting here with Lenny Richardson, and he is here to talk to us about digital marketing. Lenny, welcome to the 9-5 Podcast.
Thank you so much, Nick, for having me on the podcast. I appreciate you letting me take some time to talk about stuff.
Absolutely. As I've started this podcast and started interviewing people, it's really interesting the type of people that you can meet, especially on social media. And that's where a lot of guests that I've had featured on this show came from. And that's exactly where we met. We met on Instagram. I think you actually reached out to me and we just kind of got to chatting, and it's crazy how it can all kind of come together like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I in a weird way, I feel like social media it's strange. You can see someone on social media and end up knowing more about them, I feel like, and sort of build a better bond with them more than in real life often. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the really good relationships that I've had in the business realm have really come from social media more than anything.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Yeah, same way on my end. It truly makes no sense, but I'm not complaining.
Yeah, no, the social media has opened up the world for connection, and I absolutely love it. So I guess right away, why don't you give the listeners a little bit of an idea of who you are and what it is you actually do?
This is always the hard part. Well, as you said, my name's Lenny. I live in Northern Virginia right now in Leesburg. I own a digital marketing and ad agency, and I also do real estate, residential real estate in Virginia. Been doing, I guess, digital marketing for quite a while at this point. Probably been about 7 years or so, at least 7 years or so. And yeah, that's pretty much the Cliff Notes version of myself.
So was real estate or something you kind of picked up on the back end of that? Was digital marketing kind of where you kind of rooted at to begin with?
Yeah, so as far as me getting into real estate, that sort of came. So I mean, I guess without getting too deep into my whole life story, after college, my original goal was to be an attorney, a lawyer, and I was gonna go to Georgetown, which is why I live in Virginia now. Georgetown's in DC, and literally moved down here at the very last minute. Decided not to do it. Didn't have a job or anything, and some roommates or some people that I knew from, I went to Penn State. Some people that I knew from Penn State that had already been living down here for about 2 years or so. They graduated much earlier than I did. They said, if you want, you could just live with us for a bit, find a job down here, and we'll all split the rent. Did that sort of at that time, thought about real estate investing. And as I started to read about real estate investing and look into it, I realized that I knew nothing about real estate at all. And it's very complicated. So I became an agent because I figured if I become a real estate agent, I can kind of work for myself, sort of do the entrepreneurial thing, make money on the side, and eventually use the money from being an agent to become a real estate investor. Little did I know that being a real estate agent is also very difficult and requires a lot of skills in the kind of sales arena as well as the marketing arena. So it wasn't the first time I did marketing at all, digital marketing, but it was definitely, I would say real estate is kind of what made me get deep into it out of necessity.
With the digital marketing side of things, do you have like a website where you're helping others with digital marketing, or are you doing like consulting, or how does that kind of play into what you're doing?
So as far as the agency, we help businesses with their marketing overall. I know a lot of people sort of have social, quote unquote, social media marketing agencies, and I do like them. Some of them I've seen are really good. I don't like to call what we have that, just because I feel like to the how do I put it, to the average consumer who might hear social media marketing agency, at least from conversations I've had, they typically seem to think it's just posting on social media, and to some extent that is what it is, but I think they discount the overall strategy that goes behind it and the overall value of posting on social media and things like that. So I just call it a digital marketing agency, and it's we sort of, for whoever chooses to hire us, we do their copy, their email marketing, social media. That's something that we do as well. Depends on the platform. We don't really do LinkedIn or anything like that, but Facebook and Instagram, of course. And we try to make it more about the strategy involved, because some businesses might do very well on, say, Instagram, depending on their target demographic. But other businesses, actually, I just spoke to someone a few days ago. He had a photography business in real estate, and he's sort of targeting seasoned real estate agents. And of course, photography is great for Instagram, but I suggested he go after people on Facebook more so with Facebook ads, mostly because real estate agents tend to be a lot older, usually above the age of 35, 40s, and 50s. And people in that age group tend to be on Facebook. So it's a very long answer. I apologize, but
No, no, then that all makes sense. I mean, so you companies literally they'll come to you, and then you kind of help guide them with their digital marketing strategy. Not even so much as like, okay, post this, post here. Like you help develop a strategy with them.
yes, and we do it for them as well, but
Okay.
we try to really focus on that strategy, just because some people, if you just say we'll post for you, it to me it's so vague. Like, you can post 50 different things on, say, Instagram, but the things you post might not lead to followers, or might, even if it does lead to followers, it might not lead to engaged followers. So all of those things, at least to me, kind of require different strategies that we kind of help them with, figure out what they want, and then we do it for them.
Yeah. I think it's very common for, I guess, people once they start getting into social media, it's everyone puts such a emphasis on the follower count. And
Yes,
that
yeah.
becomes everyone's goal where it's like, okay, I'm going to buy followers and I'm going to try to get as much people like drive up that follower count, even though it could potentially lead to no visitors to their site, no potential leads, like nothing. It's like, okay, well, your number's cool, but where's the ROI?
Exactly, exactly. That's what it is right there. People look at the followers. I think it's a vanity metric, in my opinion, at least.
Yep.
It looks nice, but if you have a business and you have, say, some businesses might have 100,000 followers, and you look at their likes and their comments, and there's like one like, one comment. Not literally,
Right.
but it's very low relative to what their follower count is. You're sitting there scratching your head, wondering, where'd you guys go wrong?
So okay, that's kind of cool because I didn't know you guys were involved very heavily with the strategy like that. So that's really cool. What do you think is very common? Like when you bring in new clients, where do you start? I guess.
So what we like to start with is first, and this is a little where it gets a little bit tougher, because a lot of businesses, at least that we've come across, don't do what I'm about to say.
Mhm.
We like to start with what is their target demographic. So, like I mentioned with the photographer we spoke to recently, or at least I spoke to earlier this week, a lot of businesses might say, I just want leads, or I just want, maybe they're just looking for followers in general, or they're looking for A, B, and C, whatever the metric is, they're looking for it. We want to figure out why. Is it going to be ROI positive? And then once we figure out why they want it, is it going to be ROI positive? How do they go about getting it? So, for example, if you're like me personally, for me, for real estate, my target demographic is first time home buyers. And I cautiously say this just because there's fair housing laws. And as a real estate agent, it gets tricky, but this is me disclaiming that this is not me targeting specific ages for legal reasons. It's typically, for me, say, for example, first time home buyers, which generally falls in the right now millennial age group. So probably people around 25, 26, 27 to maybe mid 30s. And so like that, for example, that strategy, if you're targeting them, is a lot different than if you're targeting, I don't know, someone who's selling their house or someone who's refinancing or someone who's an empty nester. But that's kind of where we start with all businesses is we try to figure out who they're looking for and then kind of reverse engineer the process to how do we find them in the most efficient and fastest way.
Okay, so then I got a follow up for you on that because I've dabbled with a couple other businesses aside from like the podcast 9 5 to Freedom, that whole brand. Something we've very much struggled with is defining what that demographic is, what that target market is. What are some, I guess, tips or strategies that people could use to implement that they could essentially come to their target market or pinpoint where that's at?
Yeah. So just to make sure I understand what you're asking, I guess that target demographic, whatever they want to find, how do they sort of figure out what they're looking for? If that made sense.
I think so. I think we're on the same page. So basically, where we were at with our business, we were trying to get the word out. It's something kind of unique. There's not a lot of companies out there like what we're trying to do. So we thought, okay, well, we'll run a bunch of Facebook ads because we're going to be able to reach a large amount of people and we can try to kind of narrow it down. But I'm sure you know, running Facebook ads without a very specific market or audience in mind is like pissing money away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that I feel like is what we've kind of been doing. So I guess I'm curious, how do you define what that audience looks like?
So I would say, I mean, I think the main thing, and it's a kind of weird, it's somewhat of a weird way to look at it, but to me, this makes sense. First, figure out who do you most want to work with. So and this applies for any business, like say, for example, you're a millennial and you don't get along that well, or at least you don't see eye to eye on certain issues with someone who's say 55,
Mm-hmm.
you might want to exclude them from your target demographic. And it also might be the case that whatever it is that you are trying to sell or whatever your services are, it's not to say that it's not valuable. That group might not see the value in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you're just offering to say run someone's Instagram, you might want to target and say, I'm 27. It might be better for me to target someone who's in their 20s or maybe early 30s because they understand the value, or at least they hopefully can understand it, or at least you can inform them of the value of an Instagram account. But someone who might be 70 who also has a business but no social media at all, you could try to persuade them or get them to see the value of say Instagram, but it'll be a tough time. And you also have to consider that even if you do convince them, you still have to work with them and give them results. And if it depends on the person, depends on the relationship between the two people. But say, for me at least, if I'm working with someone who's in their 70s or 80s, they might not listen to me, mostly just because I'm younger than them. And they might discount, any experience I have, or at least in their mind that I claim to have. I mean, plus, if you're someone in their 20s, you probably like working with people in their 20s. Same way, if you're someone who's in their 50s, you probably like working with someone in their 50s. If you're a female, you probably like working with other females, etc. So I would say first figure out who you want to have as a client because that's going to make the relationship that much better initially. Um, and then sort of narrow it down based on what you're actually offering, just because what you're offering might make sense to certain groups. It might not make sense to other groups.
Okay. If a company comes to you and I guess if that's the first step, you guys kind of identify what that market looks like, who that audience is. Do you run tests? Like, are you constantly testing stuff on Facebook and Instagram? Or I guess, how do you narrow down? I know we tried starting really broad and kind of like trying to weed out, okay, well, that didn't work. Let's try this and try to get rooted down to where we're like very specific. Do you guys do anything like that with the clients you guys bring in?
So we just try to figure out what's working in general and sort of replicate that while also adding that person's brand, or not that person if they are a brand, but that company's brand to our efforts, if that all makes sense. So,
So you're looking at other people in the industry that are doing it
yes,
and
yeah.
kind of trying to go with what's already working in a sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the reason why too, this is just my personal philosophy. This isn't me saying I'm right. I've tried to be so different to the point where I almost feel like I'm reinventing the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that it doesn't, at least for me, it doesn't work that well. And maybe it could have if I did it longer, but it makes a little bit more sense to sort of whatever people are doing, sort of replicate it, but add your own splash of personality or brand or your own personal touch to it. Like, don't necessarily steal, but be willing to copy just a little bit.
Well, definitely. I mean, if something's already working, if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's basically what it comes down to.
Exactly. Yeah. I know a good book for the audience if they haven't read it yet. I recommend it. It's called there's a few of them. I'm trying to remember which one this specific book is. It's Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson, and he has the whole book is great. He has a whole chapter about every chapter is about a different social media platform, and he has one in particular about Instagram. And I'd already been doing this, but it was validating to see him mention this. And he says that he sort of just follows, I think, like 50 or 100 of the top people in his industry, and he basically whatever they do, which is pretty much going to be like Gary Vee. It's always, I feel like Gary Vee kind of leads that digital marketing niche, at least for the moment. Him and probably the big three are like Grant Cardone and Ty Lopez kind of, but he's been a little bit quiet lately. But
Oh yeah, I was following him for a while, and I haven't seen him post anything in a while.
he's been buying up businesses, man, like famous, like popular businesses, and
Dang.
just it's insane. He just bought Pier One Imports, like linens
Oh,
and
no way.
things. He bought a lot of these like big ones for like not that much money.
Wow. Man, what it would be to have that kind of money, right?
Yeah, it's crazy because there was another. And this is actually one thing I wanted to. Sorry about that. One thing I wanted to talk about kind of later on in the podcast for anyone listening. I think to me it's a really good tip, but it's very underestimated. And sort of a side note, I guess this one guy I sort of met him in California a while back earlier this year. He's been going around buying. One thing he recommends people if you have a lot of capital, which I do not, but he recommends people in times like this, sort of when people are kind of panicking, businesses are going out of business, he's going around and he's buying lists from companies, like their email lists. And a lot of these big businesses don't understand the value of them. And they're saying, why do you want our list? And he's like, well, I want them. And I'm making up a number, but he'll say like, I'll buy them for like $5,000 when the company is a multi-million-dollar company. And they'll say, sure, why not? We don't need them and we need the money. So let's do it. And so he kind of says, you buy the list because a lot of people think the whole, I think for digital marketing specifically, and I think this applies to all marketing, but at least specifically for digital marketing, the follow-up I think is the most valuable part of virtually any business, just staying top of mind. And the email list is kind of what lets people stay top of mind. But
100%.
yeah, so like even
Wow.
Ty, there's a good Ty Lopez, and I thought he was doing this, and he put up a post I think on Facebook maybe a few days ago, and I remember showing it to my dad because it basically said exactly what I thought he was doing. He's buying these old companies that have that are really popular, so they have branding already built in. They have hundreds of thousands, millions of people that have been buying from them for decades at this point. So they're qualified customers that know the brand. He's going in, and I'm not saying pennies on the dollar because it's a lot of money that he's paying, I'm sure. But for essentially a discount, he's going in and buying the company. He just bought the brand and he bought the list, and he can now not only sell to that list whatever it is that say Pier One, whatever Pier One's selling, he could potentially cross sell them and maybe get them hooked on a different company that he owns and get them to buy that stuff, or he can put his products in those businesses like Pure One and Lens and things and all that. So I don't know. To me, it's a really valuable asset in a business, the list, but it's very undervalued.
I completely agree with you. That is genius, for one. I wish I had the capital to do something like that because that is really smart. But email marketing is actually something that I'm starting to get heavily involved in. I've put it off just because I figured, okay, well, I'll get the email list when I get the followers, or I'll get the email list once I start actually building up the credibility. And I've kind of changed my tune to where now I almost think I'm going to use like the means to bring people onto my email list as my source of credibility.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good strategy. I mean, if you get them on the list, if you can get them on the list, to me that means that they already, at the very least, think you have some credibility. And I mean, once they're on the list, at that point, you can just, I don't know exactly what your specific strategy would be, but whatever it is you're offering them or whatever it is you're providing to them, they'll be able to see it more frequently. And that'll keep you top of mind. And that will build the credibility more, I think, the long-term follow-ups with the email marketing.
That's kind of what my mindset is going into this. So everyone always, I guess not everyone, because a lot of people still don't see the value in the list, but I hear it a lot. The money is in the list.
Yes. Yeah.
And as I was doing research into email marketing and kind of putting together my action plan and strategy for how I was going to do all this, I was reading some crazy stats, and it said that email marketing accounts for 4,400% ROI on average, like across all industries, which means for every dollar you put in, you get 44 back.
Which is insane.
That's outrageous.
That's an insane ROI.
I wish I could find, oh man, because they compared email marketing to, it was engagement rate. So they talked about engagements with email marketing, and as I'm talking, I'm seeing if I can pull this up here. They were talking about email marketing, and the engagement rates for emails across all industries is, the open rates is 22.86%, with a click-through rate of 3.7%, which, okay, might sound like it's not that great, but but when you look at the overall engagement rate for Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, the average across all three of those major platforms is 0.6%.
Yeah. Yeah. Email,
That is crazy.
people underestimate email. And as a side note, not to make it too complicated too for anyone listening, email, like as far as the list goes, email is a way to use a list. I know some people, I don't personally do this, so I can't say how effective it is, but I've heard from people it's very effective. Some people that I follow and know, they have begun to use Facebook lists, so they use Messenger to build up a list. And I'm guessing that they're kind of using Facebook ads to build the list or something like that. Or I've seen some people redirect people from Instagram to Facebook Messenger, and then they use sort of bots to kind of automate the follow-up process, which is me personally, I would say bots are kind of a weird. Use them sparingly, I guess, is kind of my thing. But yeah, to not deviate too far, for anyone listening, lists are good for email and Messenger or other platforms too. You can build a list virtually anywhere, I guess.
Last note I'm going to make about the list before we jump ship to another section of the podcast or a different topic, but I think with the email list, you have the ability to get more personalized with your audience. And the main reason that I'm heading towards the email marketing route, trying to build up that list, is you own your list.
Yes.
If you build up a following of how many thousands of followers on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, they could take that away from you tomorrow. They could take it away from you right now.
Yeah, totally.
And your email list doesn't go anywhere. You keep that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. It's another thing I think people don't really consider on these platforms, but definitely worth investing into getting that list and making sure it's not solely on one platform that you don't own.
100%. Okay, so I'm going to shift gears here a little bit. Obviously, we're going to stay on the digital marketing route, but I'm curious. So you were talking about the services that you offer people. You go into the email marketing, the social, you help with the copy. Do you guys deal at all with SEO, or are you primarily on platform building the strategy?
We do minimally, I'll say, and it depends on the business as a whole. Like we focus heavily on gyms. So gyms do need good SEO just because people, it's local. Unless you're doing some kind of different type of online type training program where it doesn't matter where you're located. But yeah, before I tend to make my answers too long, I guess. But yeah, short answer is yes, we do SEO. The people at least we try to focus on, we want them to use it's nicer to have a digital media presence, first of all. And it's nicer when whatever you're selling is digital. So if you're, say, like a doctor's office, we don't do that kind of stuff just because the person has to physically come to a brick and mortar building, which, as we can see from present times, has its own disadvantages. And that was a weird example, of course, but yeah, digital is a little bit nicer, in my opinion.
I got you. I want to talk about the ads a little bit again. Sorry, I'm jumping back and forth here. Where have you seen the most success in running ads? Like what platform tends to do better for you? Or is it, I know we were kind of talking demographic specific, but do you tend to sway for one platform over the other based on the demographic, or do you try to push ads out across multiple platforms?
So I think Facebook, I would say, is the probably the best platform. I would say primarily just because you can also retarget. It's easier to retarget people that visit your website or target super specific people who have an audience similar to what you have. A cool thing with Facebook, at least, and I'm not sure if you can do this on Google. I'm not that familiar with Google Ads, to be honest, so I stay out of that territory. But with Facebook ads, you can you can basically spy on your competition and see their ads and see which ones do well. So that's a good feature. As far as I've tried Instagram ads, I don't like running them just because I'm not that well versed in them yet. It's tough for me, at least for me. I'm not saying they don't work. I'm just saying for me and kind of what we do. I haven't seen any. I would say if you're trying to grow a following, they're advantageous. I haven't tried with any other purposes really, so I don't push them. If that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah. So, okay, then I guess what are your thoughts on influencer marketing as opposed to ads?
I think it's great. I mean, I think if you can make a good deal, it's probably better ROI because it's more direct and there's social proof involved in it. I think Facebook ads can be very costly in general, and it's very easy for stuff to go wrong. Like you could have a really good picture and maybe a good headline, but the actual copy itself might not be great. I know today, literally just today, we're doing some internal ads or working on some, and I was kind of reviewing some of the copy, and I was spying on other businesses' ads to see what's working and what's not working. And this one ad, I forget what company it is. Their link wasn't working, so I don't know. So that stuff like that can be an issue. The ad was great too, by the way, and their whole ad leads to a link that takes you to a landing page, and the landing page has a Calendly link, which I'm assuming they'll use to kind of call you and close you. I think it looked like a good process, but I go to click on the Calendly link to see like what their copy might be, and the link doesn't work.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so they just wasted however much money it cost, to get me to see it and then click for nothing because they can't convert me because I can't click the link. So yeah, like Facebook ads can have a hit or miss depending on how deep people want to get into it. But I think influencer marketing is great because, and I guess it depends on the strategy overall, but you have that social proof element. You can convert people, I think, a lot easier, assuming the price is worthwhile for both parties.
Right. Yeah. That's for anybody listening. If you're not quite familiar with influencer marketing, it's definitely becoming a big thing, or it has become a pretty big thing, in which you can pay influencers to basically promote your posts. Or maybe you can explain it a little bit better, but I know for Instagram, you can create a post, send this influencer your picture and the copy that you want included with it, and you pay them to basically publish that post, and that puts you in front of their audience. So if they have a very well engaged audience, then there's a good chance that you can start bringing some of their audience over onto your following.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly it. For anyone listening too, I would say one of the prime, one of the prime examples of influencer marketing, I would say is probably Bang Energy. I would say what they basically, at least what I understand their main marketing tactic to be, is influencer marketing. And for anyone that is not familiar with that company, it's an energy drink company, and basically what they do is they get very attractive women to do videos with them drinking or holding their cans of Bang Energy. And from what I hear, they get paid a decent amount. It's not like a ton, but I'm sure it works out well for Bang Energy because if a attractive female has say 100,000 followers and they pay her a couple thousand, maybe like 40 or 50,000 a year to do 5 videos a week for a whole year holding their bottle or their cans, that's probably going to be pretty good ROI on their part. I mean, they're still doing it, so I imagine it can't be bad ROI, or else they wouldn't have so many girls doing it.
Right.
I can't say that I haven't bought a few cans of Bang Energy, even though I don't like the way they taste, just because you get curious to know if they're that good because you see it so much. So I guess it worked.
That's another thing that I've been curious about trying. Right now I don't have any paid products to offer, so I'm kind of holding off on that. But I think it is a very good opportunity if you're not trying to get too involved with the ads, but still want to try to, I guess, grow your audience or get in front of other people's audiences. You can get in front of some very small, I guess not small, but like micro influencers. Maybe they don't have millions of followers, but maybe a couple thousand followers. That might be a great opportunity for you to get in front of thousands of people when you otherwise might not be able to with your current audience. So I definitely think it's a good opportunity and something to definitely look into. And that when you look at the micro influencers, I don't think the price to get on those pages is nearly as high as if you were to try to get on probably the influencers like what Bang is working with. They're probably paying way more than what something I would pay.
Yeah, no, yeah, totally. And as a side note too, I don't know how true this is now, but you reminded me of something I read recently. There's a good book I just recently read. It's called Just Advertising by David Ogilvy, and he has a whole chapter about using celebrities to market for you, which I guess now we can call that influencer marketing. But So he sort of suggested that celebrities don't work that well, mostly, and it kind of it for the I finished reading it a few days ago, so it's been sticking with me for the past couple days. He said it doesn't work as well with celebrities just because the celebrity's name tends to overshadow the product, and so you might see, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a celebrity.
Like LeBron James.
Yeah, like you might see LeBron James in a commercial and you like LeBron James, but you don't pay any attention to the product just because, you're focused on
You're
LeBron
paying
James.
attention to LeBron.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
mean,
know that.
I don't know how true that if that holds up as well right now. I did see a commercial I think yesterday with Jason Derulo in it, the singer, and I have no idea what he was selling. So maybe it does hold a little bit true. I just remember Jason Derulo was in it, but I know like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, also does Under Armour, and I totally always think about Dwayne Johnson when I see Under Armour. So maybe it depends specifically on, but I also like the gym and I like working out. So and I was already familiar with Under Armour. So I don't know. There might be a balance of picking the right celebrity, or in this case, picking the right influencer specifically for certain brand, maybe getting them to say or do certain things. But I do agree with you about the micro influencer thing. I think to some extent the micro influencer might be more valuable than even if you did have the money to get a big influencer, just because I feel like people might know. Like say if you could afford like Logan Paul, pretty popular YouTuber, I sense people might go, Logan Paul doesn't really use that product. He doesn't really care about it. He's just doing it for money. But if you can get someone who's famous in like say maybe a small town, or I don't know, in a college campus who's known by the college, they probably won't want that much money, or they won't need it. I shouldn't say they won't negotiate too high, but they are trusted by their friends. So whatever they like or push, more people might be willing to believe them. People might not be so willing to believe Logan Paul.
There's a service out there right now where people can record videos. Cameo. Have you seen Cameo?
No.
So you go on there, a lot of celebrities will, like, I guess, put their services on Cameo, and you pay that celebrity or whoever it is to either do just a short video or maybe wish somebody happy birthday. And I don't know, there are a bunch of sports athletes, like football players or something like that, and they'll go on there and they'll like wish a friend happy birthday or leave a special message for somebody. I think Bo Jackson did one. He left a message for like a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old coming into high school. He's like, hey man, go crush your dreams, like motivational deal from Bo Jackson. Really cool.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
But I think people are also starting to use that as a platform to try to like get almost like a quote unquote celebrity endorsement, where they'll actually give the celebrity what to say, like, hey, check out this product, it's super cool, I love it. And the person's getting paid to do it, the celebrity is, so they're like, okay, well, go try out this new product that I really like.
So it's funny you mentioned that because you reminded me of an ad I saw recently on Facebook, and it was I think it's because I'm looking up because we focus on gym so much. It was I don't remember. I know they were fitness related, but it had an endorsement from Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. And granted, it did get me to stop and watch the whole thing, but it was a little bit weird because like I looked at their business page and like all of their social media, and it was all virtually non-existent.
Right, okay.
So no blogs, no, the website wasn't that great, which is, I don't judge people on websites always too much depending on the business, but it didn't look like a really good website at all. No social, like no Instagram at all, which is weird. And their Facebook had no followers, or virtually no followers. I think it had like 30 followers.
But yet they have an endorsement from Kevin O'Leary.
But they had an endorsement from Kevin O'Leary, yeah. And I was like, how did they get this endorsement? It doesn't seem like they're doing any. I mean, maybe they are. I don't know, but I don't know. So maybe they used Cameo. You said it's called.
Yeah, Cameo, Cameo. And now for anybody that wants to check it out, I'll put that in the show notes as well. But actually, I just pulled it up here and I looked. Kevin O'Leary is on it.
Wow. Okay.
And I was on it a few months back. Someone had pointed it out to me, so I was checking it out. And I want to say he had a rate in there where it was like if you wanted him to promote a business. So that very well could have been what happened. He's not cheap by any means. And here it says $1,200 for
$1,200 for Kevin O'Leary?
Yeah, and I don't even know exactly what he will do.
That is so. I mean, it is a lot, but for Kevin O'Leary, that doesn't sound like a terrible amount.
If you get an endorsement from Kevin O'Leary,
that's interesting. You know what? I'm curious to know for that company. I might look them up again and see if I can find them again. I haven't seen their ads lately, but if I do get their ads, I might have to do some digging and see if their follower count or if anything looks better.
Maybe. See if it's gone up.
I wonder if there's going to be any legal maybe issues that come up in the future with Cameo, allowing celebrities to endorse potentially like fraudulent products or
Yeah, it's almost like
services.
false advertising.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know. I'm gonna look that up. I never heard about that.
Anybody who is interested in influencer marketing, or maybe you want to just try to dive into it a little bit, there is a website that I've been looking at lately. It's called influence.co. And basically, you can go onto this platform and search for specific topics or basically find influencers in your industry. And it'll actually tell you how many followers they get, what their engagement's like, if you want to actually promote your content on that influencer's Instagram page or whatever it is. I think you can negotiate with the influencers through influence.co, but it's got a huge database and you can search pretty much anybody in that platform. So definitely check that out. I'll put a link to that all in the show notes as well. So if you're interested, it's there. Okay, now I wanted to talk to you a little bit about video content. I see on Instagram you're posting a lot of video content,
Yes.
and it is something that I've been trying very hard to get into. This podcast has definitely boosted my confidence in that realm. But I'm curious, how long ago did you start the video content? And is that something that you kind of recommend to all of your clients?
So I do recommend it to all clients and anyone listening to this. I think for a few different reasons, video is probably the best thing to do, and I'll get into that in a second, I guess. But yeah, I've been doing videos, I guess, for about a year and a half, 2 years at this point, I would say. Trying to do more videos in a shorter time frame as time goes on. But yeah, as far as doing videos, I think everyone should include videos in their strategy. Mostly because I think video is good personal branding. It's good branding for the person or for the business. And I think people, especially now, I think people buy more so from people than from a corporation, if that all
I
helps.
completely agree.
Yeah, and I mean, I think video is the best way to convey the individual personal brand, or say like Amazon has Jeff Bezos, but I at least you might. I don't know who any of the other people that work for Amazon are. I don't know the CEOs. I don't know any of them. But it essentially makes people know who you are, and by extension, know what your business or anything you sell or do. If you don't sell anything, whatever you do, it helps you know what that all is.
I think it definitely, with video content, you're able to get your personality out there better.
Yeah,
People
exactly.
can kind of relate to you as a person, which makes it a lot easier to buy from you when you're kind of on the same level.
Mhm. Yes, yeah. There was a there's actually, it's funny, there's a guy, we were kind of talking about this a little before the episode. There's an influencer in my he lives in Northern Virginia. He's about maybe 2 cities over. I'm good friends with him. He had me on his podcast a while back, and he is just I met him from social media. I would see his videos, and it was funny because the videos he posted, he used to be an influencer in what was it? He was in the I forget exactly what he did, but he was an influencer for I think the army. It was very specific, very niche, I guess, position. I don't know the army very well, so I can't describe it too well. But he was basically an influencer in that niche. Sold an ebook on Amazon. I think he was like number 1 for a while in that category. It was a very small category, but it was still really cool. And saw his stuff. I thought he was just an interesting guy. And I'm out at the bars one day, and I see him walk in with his girlfriend. And I was with my buddy. I was like, I think that's his name's Andre. I was like, I think that's Andre. Pretty sure it's him. Let me go talk to him. And I went up and talked to him, and I was like, dude, I watch your like Instagram and like your YouTube channel and stuff like that. Like, you're killing it, man. And he was super nice. We at that point exchanged phone numbers, and we are still friends to this day. But the overall point, I think, is social media, I think, can help you bond with people, even if they're not in your super close vicinity, and build that connection ahead of time.
That's pretty awesome. And you wouldn't have recognized him had he not been putting videos out.
Yeah, I mean, he would have just been, he would have just been another guy. There's probably more people at the bar. It makes you wonder who else is possibly famous or something that you run into every day.
Right.
But
Or at least a micro influencer.
yeah, but like had I not seen his videos, I wouldn't have. Most likely I wouldn't have said anything to him because he would have just been another person at the bar.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I mean, really every social media platform is pushing video content so hard.
Yeah,
And you see how big TikTok went, and then Instagram tried to jump into that a little bit with their reels.
I'll be honest, I don't really like them, but I'll use them. But I don't know. I'm just maybe
Were
I'll.
you using TikTok at all? Or are you?
I I think I made like 3 or 4 videos on TikTok. And the reason why I just didn't like it, TikTok and Reels, is it's a little bit too short for me. Most of the stuff I put out tends to be not super long, but I would say relative to especially TikTok, probably about 5 to 15 minutes. So that it's really hard to condense that into, I think, what is I don't even know how long reels are. Maybe about
15 seconds.
15 seconds. Yeah. It's very hard to condense 15 minutes into 15 seconds.
That's where I was struggling. I was fine with TikTok because there you can get, it's either, I think, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or a minute, if I'm not mistaken. So that's actually where I started kind of getting into the video content and what kind of helped build up the confidence for me to even do this podcast. So I have a little bit more sympathy with TikTok, or I resonate with TikTok a little bit better because it kind of helped me. I knew I had to get my point out. I had less than a minute to do it. And it was like, there's no BS, there's no fluff in the middle. It's like bang, 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 here are the points, and video's done. And you don't have to invest a lot of time into like a huge, long 15, 20-minute video, worry about the editing, do all that. Like you can just pump out small bite-sized pieces of content. But now reels with 15 seconds, I mean, you can't really share that much information in 15 seconds.
That is a talent to be able to do content like that. I'm not good at it.
And when I was doing TikTok, and I haven't put a video out on TikTok basically since I started the podcast. I was doing it really hard for a couple of weeks, and I was putting out like 2 to 4 videos on TikTok a day. And they're typically just like tips for like social media tips or blogging tips. It was just stuff around my personal brand. And I mean, it was tough kind of getting the timing down, the cadence of everything, but because it was so quick, I didn't have time to think. And that was my biggest issue when I was trying to get into recording videos, is I would hit record and I'd just forget everything that I was going to talk about because I knew it was going to be long. I knew it was going to have to be elaborate. And with TikTok, I didn't really have that option. It was like, okay, I have a minute to get all this information out, go. So it was less thinking and more doing.
Yeah. I don't know. That's tough. That's difficult.
What would be a couple common mistakes that you see people make when they are getting into digital marketing?
I would say so. I would say there's a short term and a long term common mistake. I would say short term, one of the biggest things is not being attention grabbing and sort of say you're on social media, maybe posting things that only you want to post, but not responding to what other people want to see you post, if that makes sense at all. And not, I mean, not to say that you should go like extremely out of your way to post, just what your audience wants. But I'll say a good example. There's a YouTube channel I love called Dashy Games. Love the dude. Recommend him.
What is it?
It's Dashy Games. Dashy like running kind of.
Okay.
He's a YouTube gamer. I've noticed that he responds very well to his audience because he'll play horror games. I mean, he does polls a lot. That's how much he responds to them. But he'll do maybe in a week. He usually shoots this video usually every day, and on Saturdays too. Usually during the week, he'll probably do about 5 different types of videos, and the one that gets the least amount of positive feedback, he'll just never do that kind again, or at least he'll not do it for like a month or two. And the ones that do the most, like significantly well, he'll block out a whole day to consistently do that one type of video. So for him, it's he does a lot of horror games because horror games people like to watch people get scared and laugh. And for him in particular, a lot of people like watching him play Mario games, especially Mario Maker. So for the past like I think it's been 2 years, he always blocks out a whole day, and he usually does about an hour and a half, maybe about 45 minutes, 45 minutes, like an hour of just Mario Maker. And he does that every single week. You look forward to it. You always like it. You as the viewer always like it. And he's a good example of someone who just adapts to what his audience wants and gives them more of it. Sometimes on social media, at least in particular, and digital marketing in general, people give tips or information or posts that their audience just doesn't care about, which, is fine to some degree, but I think it's a little bit better to kind of meet in the middle, maybe do some stuff that you like combined with what they like. So that'd be the more short-term thing. I would say long-term, and this is a little bit more technical, is really, it's back to those lists, really just building up the list, because the list is just so valuable. But that's a very long-term process that takes time, different strategies in itself.
No, I agree. The point you made about kind of not posting what you want posting for yourself versus posting for your audience, I mean, that I think is very common for people to do. But in reality, the market and your audience is going to tell you which direction you need to go in order to be successful. They're going to tell you what you want. If you really want to be successful, you got to take that feedback and that energy and put it into something where your audience is going to jive with it. I know, especially starting from scratch, starting from the bottom, you don't get as much of that feedback because you're kind of on an island. You're kind of by yourself at the beginning. So as soon as you're able to start getting that feedback, it kind of creates a loop. where, okay, now you got a little bit of a feedback. Now you can try to go implement that. And now you can get feedback on that and then implement off of that. And what you were talking about with that Dashy Games where he goes and puts out polls, that's excellent because now he's straight up asking, what do you guys want? And they're telling him. And then he goes and capitalizes on it, which is probably why he's grown such an amazing following.
Yes, yeah. He's pretty big on man, he's definitely got over 1 million subscribers, which is I would say for YouTube no small feat at all. And it's been growing a lot. He's been growing a lot for the past few years, so definitely not a easy thing to accomplish, especially nowadays with the algorithms.
I want to get into YouTube, but I think I'd frustrate myself. I'm going to, like a lot of these podcast episodes, everything, they're going to go on YouTube, but I'm gonna need to do some serious thinking as far as putting together an actual strategy for being successful on the platform. So we covered mistakes. Now, what are 3 ways people can start implementing digital marketing to improve their business?
I would say it's 3 specific tips, and I've been sort of pushing these 3 things just because I think they work well, but they're really simple. First thing I would say, you could find several, but find at least one lead generation method. And usually in digital marketing, they refer to them as lead magnets. It's just a way to get people who are interested in your potential product or service to essentially get them to more or less buy into you and get them on your list, which is, as we've mentioned a few times, sort of the golden nugget of your business. It's sort of the key to your business growing and sustaining itself. But and for anyone listening too, I know some people I've met overthink the lead magnet. The lead magnet is literally it could be anything and everything. The only qualification is that it needs to be interesting to your potential audience. So yeah, that'd be the first one. Second one, build a list. They call it a CRM in digital marketing. The acronym, different websites give you different definitions. Basically, client relationship management system. And it can easily just be an Excel sheet. Excel sheet can be a little bit hard to manage after a while though. But yeah, once you have the lead magnet, anyone that download your lead magnet, usually with their email address, put all of them into a list. And that would be the second step, sort of the second tip. Put them in the list in the CRM. And then the third step would be to follow up with them consistently. And if you have a product or service, that is where you'll get that extra additional revenue into your business. So I would say those are the main three tips for people in digital marketing.
Perfect. Thank you. For anybody, and I think it's kind of the same concept that you were talking about, the CRM. So you're using that as a way to kind of manage the leads that you're gaining or the subscribers that you're getting, right?
Yes, yeah.
So a lot of people I think that might be listening to this, they're probably more familiar with the email service providers, ESPs such as MailChimp, ConvertKit. I've used MailerLite, Aweber, all those. So I think that's kind of serves a very similar function to what you're talking about here, correct?
Yeah, exactly. That's those all I believe have CRMs built into them, but yeah, it doesn't need to be too complicated. Just any place that stores the emails and lets you follow up with emails of your own afterwards. And I'm pretty sure they all do that. I know we use Mailchimp in our company. And I know like HubSpot is pretty good. HubSpot I think can be a bit complicated because there's so many different variables that they try to get you to fill out, but it's a good option because it's free.
Right. HubSpot was one. I looked into it, but there was so much involved with it that I just shut it down. Okay, and now what would be one final piece of advice that you would like to leave with the listeners?
I'm a big guy when it comes to strategy. I know I probably sound like a broken record, as I've mentioned a few times, but I just tend to I don't know, I tend to see that sometimes there's no strategy involved when even like a brand or a small business, or sometimes even with like bigger businesses I've heard of, it's like, what were they planning? Why were they doing it this way? It doesn't make too much sense. Yeah, I would say the strategy makes the most sense. Reason why I say that is because, and you may have heard this. I feel like some people, it's becoming popular. Do you know what the I'm gonna mispronounce it, the Pareto principle is?
Oh, yeah, the 80-20 rule?
Yes, yes. Yeah, a lot of people I feel like are doing sort of that 80% that only leads to the 20% results. But if you have a good strategy and you're tracking things and you're, being meticulous about it, overall, I think you want to figure out what that 20% is and just double down on that because that'll save everyone a lot of time, a lot of effort, probably a lot of stress. So that's kind of why I like pushing strategy, because especially if you're just starting out or if you have a small business or just a brand, it might not make the most sense to, and this is a mistake I made, like say for example, be on every single platform and try to post unique content for like LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. You might find out that, like, I know TikTok, and I don't know if it's the same right now just because of issues I've heard going on with China and TikTok and all that stuff. But I know that TikTok had a lot of insane organic reach, and it could have been a good strategy for a lot of people if you just wanted to get a big following and maybe leverage that to get them on other platforms. It could have been a good strategy to post 4 or 5 or 6 times on TikTok all day. I know a dude who he posted on TikTok a lot, and he got 1 million followers in like 2 months, which is insane because you can't get that, and like you really can't get that anywhere else, and it made me very sad because I missed out. But yeah, so if like say for example, if your followers are your goal, TikTok might have been the platform. I would say maybe if more longevity is your goal, maybe Instagram, because it seems like Zuckerberg can just buy whatever he wants, or at the very least steal and copy it. So
Well, all right, man. Just want to wrap up here. Before we go, I want to give you a chance to share any kind of links. Where can people find you? On a website or social media links? Where would you like people to go to reach out to you?
the best place if anyone wants to get in touch with me personally is I'm gonna spell it because no one can ever whenever I say it, no one can ever spell it, understandably. My Instagram is Leviticus Rich, and it's LeviticusRich. That's usually where I'm at. And for anyone that's interested too, I have an ebook. It's just a free ebook, and it kind of goes over the 3 things I mentioned earlier, and it gets in a little bit more detail. But if they're interested in that, it's just affinityagency.co/free dash ebook, and that's it.
Sweet. Awesome. Yeah. If anybody listening wants to get that ebook, make sure you go check out affinityagency.co or .com. .co/free dash ebook. I'll put the link to that in the show notes. So make sure you go hop on over to the show notes to get that link and get the ebook that Lenny created. Awesome. Well, man, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I had a blast chatting with you, and I don't know, I thought we had some pretty good digital marketing conversation. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for having me on.
Okay, that is it for the interview with Lenny Richardson. Once again, you can find him over on Instagram at Leviticus Rich. And don't forget to snag and check out his free ebook over at affinityagency.co/free-ebook. The ebook is called 3 Ways to Keep Your Business from Dying, so make sure you head over there and snag that. All the links to this episode, including the link to Lenny's free ebook, can be found over in the show notes on my website. The link for the show notes to this episode can be found over at 95podcast.com/episode 9. And just remember, 95 is all spelled out. That's NINEFIVE podcast.com/episode 9, as in the number 9. Okay, guys. So we are heading into a holiday weekend, and I will actually be taking the week off next week, which means there will not be an episode next Wednesday. My wife and I are actually going to use this time to get away for a little bit and actually celebrate our 2-year wedding anniversary that's coming up. So next week, there will be no new episode. Don't worry, though. After next week, it will be business as usual. And I'm thinking I'll probably have to try to come up with something great for the big return, something to make it special. And not only that, but it's going to be episode number 10. So that'll be episode 10 of the 95 podcast, which is so weird to say. It's so weird that we have any episodes of the 95 podcast. So that is just awesome. So, all right, guys, that's it for me. Thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to rate and review the podcast on your listening app of choice if you haven't done so already, which you guys are all awesome. So I'm sure you did that at the beginning of the episode when I originally asked. But if you hadn't, here's another reminder for you. All right, guys, I'll catch you back up in the next 2 weeks when we hit episode 10.